Well, hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everyday EDC. My name is Tyler, and today we are going to be reviewing. Oh, you guys saw it. Maybe you can't see a little sneak peek there. The AD-15 from Cold Steel. So this is the AD-15, designed by Andrew Demko. This is made by Cold Steel, but he has a custom version or a more high-end version. I don't know if it's necessarily custom. It's just called the AD-15. So Cold Steel did a production version called the AD-15 by Cold Steel, and this is what you're getting. So, real quick, this is G10. A very cool textured pattern here. Relatively aggressive, but comfortable at the same time. We have an ambidextrous pocket clip that can go on either side. That's what ambidextrous usually means, right? We have the scorpion lock, and part of the scorpion lock is this back piece of the handle. This is made of 6061 aluminum, and they call it aircraft grade. Technically it is, because there's a lot of different aluminums on aircraft, but take that for what you will. The way that this operates is there's a spring mechanism where the spring is back here, and it keeps tension on this so that this snaps forward, right? It's to keep this locked up. But that spring operates here, and this whole aluminum backspacer and locking mechanism turns into the backspacer right here. This is all aluminum. We have stainless steel liners that go all the way through here, and there is no milling on these stainless steel liners. I appreciate that, because this is not meant to be a bug-out style knife in your pocket. Some pretty aggressive jimping that is rather sharp right here, and we'll go into why that doesn't bother me kind of at the end or as we're going through some of the things. We have this drop point with this high grind coming through here. So it does, even though have a very thick blade stock, comes down to a pretty good working edge. I have used this knife for some of the harder tasks that I have ever used a knife for. And by harder, I mean I was cutting through some, they call it like a fiber frax material. It's a mixture between ceramic and fibers that's used to plug up furnaces in a aluminum industry. I'm not sure if they're using the steel. I think steel, they just mud the holes. But I was cutting through a lot of these cones, and it made it through probably about 15 cones before this S35 blade kind of started rolling and getting dull. That's a want, and I'll go into some of the wants in the future of this video, in the same video, which I guess will be in the future. Depending on when you watch it, it'll be not in my future, your future. Anyways, so other than that, we have a nice swedge that comes down and a pretty damn robust tip here. This knife, in my opinion, is the epitome of you want to use this knife and just abuse this knife, because that's what this thing is meant to do. This is kind of meant to be used with gloves. There's a choke up position here. It's kind of a half finger choil, half in the scales. And it's comfortable in hand, but in gloves, this thing is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Fidget factor wise, you can operate the scorpion lock like that, and clearly I'm not good enough to do it. But once you're getting used to the scorpion lock, it's actually pretty fidgety. Great action. This is running on Teflon on the outsides and then Phosphur bronze as they're touching the blade. So it has a double washer system, both Teflon and Phosphor bronze. I've heard stories of guys just upgrading to a thicker Phosphor bronze. I don't know how that action goes though. So the way this lock works is you can see this cutout in the tang here, and then we have this pin in the scorpion lock. As this goes back, the scorpion lock snaps into place right on that hole. Now, there's a little bit of clicking back and forth, and that's just the difference of tolerances between the pin and the hole in order to fit it in and not make it go past. But the benefit is when you're squeezing this and pushing down and cutting through things, you're tightening up this lock even further. So it's pretty cool that as you use it, and the harder use you use, the more pressure you put on it, the stronger the lock becomes, and I thoroughly appreciate that. And despite being a very unique lock, I had zero issues with this while I was using it, and I would call it pretty hard use. As you can see right here, the blade tang sticks out of the blade due to the way this locking mechanism works. Get that though. Now, this is kind of sharp. As you can see, took off a chunk of my nail there, but it hasn't bothered me. This is a knife that you're not going to use if you're being dainty or delicate or whatever you're doing. You're going to take this out and manly use it. In my opinion, this is probably the manliest knife that's usable that I've used. Now, obviously the Medford Praetorian that I had in my hands is extremely manly. But what I'm saying is this thing is just so damn robust and good ergonomics that when you're working in a heavy site that you need heavy tools, this is something that you should take with you. I thoroughly love this blade for that. On the blade here, we can see that it says AD-15 on one side. It says S35 VN on the other. Let's see if it'll focus. S35 VN and then cold steel, and then it says made in Taiwan, which this is made in Taiwan. We got these thumb studs here with like this weird circular milling pattern on them. As you can see, it collected a little bit of debris that I'm too lazy to take off, apparently. And, you know, they're effective, but nothing about this knife says fidget with me in your bare hands and enjoy it, because this is sharp, and I suggest you wear some sort of gloves or you have some serious calluses on your hands before really choosing this as your fidget factor knife, despite the Scorpion Lock being super fun to fidget with. And also the Scorpion Lock in gloves, not a problem at all to disengage. So without further ado, let's get you guys some specs. We'll go into some size comparisons and then my overall thoughts. Ooh, stabbing my phone there. That's how manly it is. It's like, I don't want to do this. Breaking out of the cage. So this manly beast comes in at 6.5 ounces or 6.46. I round up anytime I say that stuff just because that's the way my brain works. Take it or leave it for what you will. 6.5 ounces. It's not a small knife. Hence, you're not going to use it for light use. This thing's coming in at just shy of 8 3/4 inches, and the blade length itself is coming in at about 3 3/4. The cutting edge is coming in about 3 1/2. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck with the length on this guy. Let's do our overall thickness checks. Thickness of this blade's coming in at 150 thousandths, which is on the upper side of thickness for what we've seen for most of 2020. You know, we're getting into the slicier era of knives to where the overbuilt knives are kind of not as appreciated. Now, that's not to say that they're not, but, you know, it just feels like the overbuilt knives aren't as appreciated as, say, like a Wee Kite Fin or, you know, the CGRB Rio, where they're just stupid slicey. This thing comes in at a cutting edge of 30 thousandths. Yeah, about 30 thousandths behind the edge. This was sharpened once because after putting it through the ringer, I did have to put a good sharpened edge on there, which I will show you after this. The thickness of these scales are coming in at 1/2 inch, which in my opinion is relatively average for an average sized knife. Now this is a large knife, so that means it's pretty good on the thickness. The overall height is coming in at 1.55 inches. I struggle to say that. Anytime it gets over the part where you're saying thousandths, it's like so 1.55 inches, which is not that tall considering the PM3 is coming in at a 1.66, the PM2 is coming in at a 1.6, and the Man X2 is coming in at a 1.74. Speaking of the Man X2, here is your Man X2 size comparison. Here is your PM3 size comparison. As you can see, much larger than both, at least much longer. Now, when I was talking about the height in your pocket, let's see here. I don't know if I can get a good reference here. It's all about the angle. You see how the Man X2 sticks out just a little bit, and the PM3 might not stick out as much because it's hard to get these lined up properly. But you can see the PM3's coming out just a hair longer. Not much, but you know, I don't think it'll be that noticeable. The difference between this and the PM3 and Man X2 is that, as you can see, this is only really high in one spot. It drops drastically down here. This one is going to be tall and like rectangular shaped rather than kind of like the cone shape that this has got going on. So whatever you see, this might take up more in your pocket, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Here is your Best Tech Swordfish and your mini feldspar. As we can see here, the Best Tech Swordfish is coming in at just about the same length. It's going to be a bit narrower or more narrow in the carry profile, and it is much larger than the mini feldspar. For those of you that are asking why I do so many size comparisons, I do so many size comparisons so that people who don't collect knives like we do can actually see the knife and might be able to associate something they've held with the knife that I'm reviewing. That's my filler in between here. Here is your Civivi Brigand and Rub Brask and Damascus. Rub Brask and Damascus? Brass? Speak with your words. Here is my Civivi Durus with an ugly ass blade. So, real quick on the Durus, I took some sandpaper to it after dyeing it, and I kind of got this like washed pants look, and I'm actually really liking this. I'm about to do some more dyeing things with a knife that I have going out, so I'm going to be screwing around a little bit with that. You guys might get a video on that. Last but not least, your most common size reference knives. Here is your Rat Model 2 and your Rat Model 1. As you can see, the Rat Model 1 is still coming in at slightly shorter than the overall Cold Steel AD-15's length. But, you know, I mean, these are both built hard use knives, but the AD-15 is definitely, in my opinion, more hard use than the Rat Model 2. Or Rat Model 1, definitely than the Rat Model 2. So, overall thoughts on this knife. And let me double look at my notes, make sure I didn't forget anything for you guys. Tip up only, stainless steel liners, didn't put that in there. Yeah, pretty much got it. So, my likes. What do I like about this knife? Damn near everything, guys. I love the ergonomic feel. I love the weight because as a work knife and a work tool, you know you have this in your hands. When you're wearing gloves and you drop something, you're like, oh shit, this thing, like, you know you have in your hands. The jimping keeps you locked into place. Now, if you're using it with your bare hands, it's going to tear you up. But if you're using it with a glove, it's perfect. The choke-up position, which I usually love choke-up positions. In this knife, I did not use the choke-up position with gloves. I actually found it more comfortable to use like this. But the choke-up position is comfortable. So, I like the blade shape. I like the heavy use tasks that this thing can do. The action gets better and better each flip. Like, I've noticed it just kind of breaking in so nicely for such a large, kind of almost clunky style knife. And the ergo is manly design. Looking at my notes again. I was looking at the notes for the wrong knife real quick. This thing's just a freaking workhorse, guys. The AD-15, if you're looking for just a big, useful knife on the job site, which that tip, once again, to put that into perspective, here's your Bestech Swordfish. I just grabbed a random knife. I wasn't trying to pick out anything in particular. That tip, look how big that freaking tip is on this guy. I'm trying to get it without a shadow. What the hell? Look at that. Just massive. This tip is so robust. Like, everything about this knife is robust. What do I dislike? The thumb studs. I mean, the thumb studs are kind of sharp. It's annoying, mainly because I'm not wearing gloves most of the time, so it's annoying. What else do I dislike? I dislike this open blade tang. Even though it's a necessary evil, it's just kind of sharp. Like, I almost wish they would have knocked it down, and I'm kind of scared to knock it down myself in fear that it'll mess with the action some. I don't know that it will. If I do it right, I'm sure it won't, but I feel like that's a little bit annoying. It's not a huge deal. My biggest complaint with this knife, and it's more of a want than a need, but based on usage, is that while I was using this, cutting through that ceramic fiberboard type of stuff, understandably so, the blade dulled. That being said, I love S35 VN. But I guess I don't love it as much as I thought I did because it was frustrating. I'm cutting in the first couple cuts. I'm like, this is fantastic. And I get it. I get the media that I was cutting through was pretty thick. It's not supposed to like really withstand against that media on a consistent basis. But I kind of wish something this badass was in a more badass steel. Right now, the first steel that comes to mind that I would have loved to see this in, M4. Give me some M4 on this baby. If this was an M4 blade, I feel like this would be almost the perfect heavy working man's knife. Your edge isn't going to roll nearly as bad. It might be a little bit more chippy. Maybe that's where S35 comes into play, but I'm cutting through softer media, so it shouldn't chip in the first place. And this is just specific to me, obviously. I just feel like M4 on this would just wrap it all in a package and just, yeah, that's it. So, this is the AD-15 by Cold Steel, designed by Andrew Demko, made in Taiwan. and it is a fantastic workhorse of a knife. If you guys haven't experienced it yet and you do a lot of heavy stuff, even if you're cutting through a lot of cardboard each day, I mean, this is something that'll get you through. And it's not meant for the the basketball shorts, the leather pants, the dresses, the bra knife. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing, but it is meant for heavy use jeans. We're gonna go and be a man today. So I gotta stop saying so much. That's getting annoying to me. I'm sure it gets annoying to you guys. My name is Tyler. This has been Everyday EDC. This is the Cold Steel AD-15. Thank you guys so much for watching. You stay sharp, stay safe. Have a great freaking day, guys.